So this side event for us is a platform for us to share knowledge, strategies, and perspectives on sustainable, inclusive, homegrown solutions. And we are saying that Africa must lead its own climate agenda. We are not saying that we are letting the high polluting nations to go scot-free. No, they have a role to play, but we are saying we cannot wait with empty hands. So we must act. We must attract investment. We must go to the loss and damage fund discussion from a position of strength. So as a professional firm, I got so many questions on why a law firm and a group of professionals is interested in climate action. So for us, as a firm with a dedicated and robust department on sustainability, climate change, and ESG, we, in a normal course of doing work, we guide clients through climate and ESG regulations, sustainable finance, and renewable energy projects. We also assist with compliance in unlocking green opportunities. We also have advised on governance and also how our clients can manage climate-related disputes and also support policy development, helping businesses to lead confidently in this transition from a low to a low carbon future. So as a professional firm, we believe that Africa has the wisdom and the capacity to build resilient systems for climate response, and that the law plays a central role in unlocking the potential of Africa. On that note, allow me to state that we have been joined by distinguished speakers who are here physically, and we also have others who are joining us virtually. And I'm glad to introduce our first speaker. Ms. Irene is coming to give a speech on behalf of Wangari Mushiri, the Director of Africa at the Global Wind Energy Council and Global Renewable Alliance. And Wangari is a trailblazer in renewable energy, sustainable green buildings, and climate change, and has led Africa's wind power initiative, driving capacity building, market coordination, policy support, and private sector engagement across more than 15 African governments. So she brings unmatched expertise in advancing Africa's renewable energy agenda and shaping climate finance solutions. Is Irene here? Welcome, Irene.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and I bring my thanks from Wangari Mushiri. Unfortunately, she was not able to join me today, but she has sent me her colleague instead. My name is actually 𝐒𝐞𝐜𝐨𝐧𝐝 𝐀𝐟𝐫𝐢𝐜. I'm a fellow director and policy advisor at the Global Wind Energy Council. To share more about what we do, the Global Wind Energy Council was founded over 20 years ago to be able to ensure that we can serve as the consolidated voice of the entire wind energy industry. We are a membership company. We have over 1,500 members in 80+ countries, and of those members, we generate approximately 70% of all of the wind in the world. To put it into context here in the African setting, in Africa, we have enough wind potential based upon one of the reports we produced 2 years ago. It's actually being updated now. But one of the key findings from that report is that Africa has enough wind energy potential to power the entire continent 250 times over. But we are only tapping into less than 1% of that actual wind energy potential. In addition to wind energy, Africa also has some of the best solar resource in the world as well. So our role is to come in to serve as the voice of the private sector, to work with governments as well and other partners to ensure that when we are working on these stages to advocate for renewable energy as a solution to the dual climate crisis that we're experiencing now, we're able to build capacity building, policy building as well, and really drive innovative change in the world using wind energy and other renewables in partnership as a solution to that crisis. Another element of wind energy is how complementary it can also serve to other technologies as well. For example, if you look at how energy is set up, especially in the grid networks itself, solar energy is more powerful during the day, whereas wind energy is more powerful during the night. So if you can have a system that has a combination of hybrid, including it could be wind and solar, wind and hybrid, even the conversations around green hydrogen, the green element of it can come being powered by wind energy in particular. Wind has a strong compatibility element of it, but in addition to that, if you look at how much electricity is generated per kilowatt hour compared to, like, for example, wind and solar, wind generates more kilowatts per hour than even solar as well. So we're able to complement wind energy with other technologies to be able to ensure that we're creating sufficient enough energy systems that can drive this change. But please do look for us. Our organization is called Global Wind Energy Council, and we'll be happy to work with you and also fellow partners as well to drive change around the world. Thank you.
Thank you for that perspective. It really grants us in the theme of African-led resourcing using wind power. Next, we have Professor Dagafa Togosa, a distinguished scholar and the most senior professor of geography and development studies at Addis Ababa University. He has served with dedication for over 3 decades at Addis Ababa University. He earned both his BA and MA degrees in geography from Addis Ababa University and later pursued his PhD at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. His academic and professional journey has been marked by deep expertise in food security, livelihoods analysis, and agricultural geography, areas in which he made substantial contributions through teaching, research, and public engagement. Beyond the academia, Professor Dagafa has actively engaged in policy and development practice. He has consulted numerous public institutions, NGOs, regional organizations, as well as international agencies, including the United Nations and the World Bank. His work has been supported by prestigious fellowships and grants from organizations such as DAD, the Ethiopian American Foundation, Fulbright, and the Institute of Development Economics in Japan. Professor Dagafa has also contributed to national service, serving as a board member of Bule Hora University and as a Director General of Federalism and Special Support to Pastoral Areas in the Federal Republic of Ethiopia. His enduring commitment to scholarship and public service continues to shape development discourse and practice, both nationally and internationally.
I structured my talk under 4 headings. In the first place, I would like to briefly say something on key concepts of this session: climate change, climate action, indigenous knowledge, and the interconnections of these 3. And then the importance of integration. I will share with you some case studies that I reviewed and in which I personally involved as a researcher. And finally, I will shed some light on policy implications, the policy framework necessary to support the integration. Dear participants, I feel the participants of this summit are very familiar with basic concepts, but I want to just say a few words on the key concepts, starting with climate change. Climate change is about change in the state of climate that can be identified by changes in mean or variability of its property, which persists for an extended period, typically decades or longer. According to IPCC, climate action refers to the strategies implemented to mitigate climate change by reducing greenhouse gas emissions and enhancing resilience to its impact, including adaptation measures, policy frameworks, and sustainable practices aimed at achieving the goals set in the international agreements, including the 2015 Paris Agreement. Indigenous knowledge refers to the traditional local knowledge system that indigenous peoples have developed over generations. This knowledge encompasses a deep understanding of local ecosystems, biodiversity, climate patterns, and sustainable land management practices. Looking into the interrelations, the interrelations is increasingly recognized as pivotal in developing effective and equitable environmental strategies. Indigenous communities possess a profound understanding of their local ecosystem, cultivated through generations of observations and interactions, which offers critical insight into sustainable land management and biodiversity conservations. Therefore, by integrating this traditional ecological knowledge with contemporary scientific approaches, scientific knowledge, we can enhance climate resilience and develop more culturally relevant climate actions, initiatives that not only mitigate the impact of climate change, but also empower indigenous voices in the global discourse. This synergic approach not only respects indigenous rights, but also enriches our collective capacity to combat climate change effectively. Looking into the role of indigenous knowledge in climate action, indigenous knowledge plays a crucial role in climate action for several reasons. Reason number one is that indigenous peoples possess holistic understanding of ecosystem characterized by profound connections to their environment and intrinsic views of nature as interconnected system. Secondly, many indigenous communities have practiced sustainable resource management for centuries, employing traditional practices that prioritize biodiversity conservation, soil health, water management, and sustainable use of natural resources. Thirdly, indigenous knowledge systems encompass traditional ecological knowledge that provides adaptive strategies to cope with climate variability. Cultural resilience is a significant aspect of indigenous knowledge, in that indigenous cultures are deeply tied to their lands and natural resources, making the protection of these essential resources not only for environmental sustainability, but also for maintaining cultural identity and social cohesion. Finally, community engagement is a fundamental principle within indigenous communities, which often emphasizes collective decision-making and community involvement. There are certain areas where indigenous knowledge contribute to climate action, which include biodiversity conservation, land and resource management, climate monitoring and early warning, indigenous-led restoration project effectively rejuvenates degraded land by overcoming environmental degradation. And likewise, cultural heritage and education is one of the areas where indigenous knowledge has contributed in terms of climate action. Let me share with you a few case studies from Eastern Africa, 2 case studies from Ethiopia, and 2 case studies from one from Kenya and the other one from Kenya and Tanzania. I would start with the Maasai people. The Maasai people, as most of you know, are pastoral communities inhabiting, rely on pastoral livelihood system in Kenya and Tanzania. These people have their unique feature in terms of using indigenous knowledge practices. One of it is through mobility and grazing strategies. The Maasai employ transhumance system, strategically relocating their herds in response to changing climate conditions. And this practice not only ensures access to nutritious pasture during dry spells, but also prevents overgrazing in specific areas, thereby promoting ecological balance. Likewise, adaptation to drought is the 𝐼𝐥 to which the Maasai society are known. They have developed effective strategies to cope with drought, utilizing indigenous drought-resistant plants that serve as vital nutrition for livestock. Furthermore, they manage communal grazing land, which facilitates resource sharing among community members during challenging times. By marrying their indigenous ecological knowledge with contemporary climate data and climate information, the Maasai pastoralists have significantly enhanced their resilience against climate change challenges, including extended drought periods. This harmonious blend of indigenous practices with modern approach, with modern scientific approach, illustrates the critical role of traditional knowledge plays in fostering climate resilience among pastoral communities. The second case study is again the community known for forest management, the case study of 𝐒𝐞𝐜𝐵 people who actually live in Mao Forest region of Kenya. They have profound connections to forest ecosystem, relying on it for their practice for which this community are known. They have traditionally used community-based conservation initiative by this community have engaged through community-based forest management programs that emphasize their rights and knowledge. And this community work with conservation organizations to protect the forest while utilizing its resources sustainably. The two case studies I considered are from Ethiopia, one from southern Ethiopia in Oromia, the Borana community. The Borana community are known for resource management as an adaptation to climate. Their indigenous knowledge with regard to water resource management offers a valuable case study for climate actions. And this community have developed sustainable strategies to address water scarcity through communal pond, locally known as Ola, and deep wells, Tula. And each community maintains at least one pond initiated by an individual who take the first initiative. It is locally called as Abba Komfi, emphasizing collective ownership of maintenance. When it comes to the governance of these water bodies, water resources, it is under the structure of the Abba Gada, and the leader in charge of this is known locally as Abba Herrega. This indigenous knowledge system exemplifies culturally relevant, ecologically sustainable practice vital for climate resilience. The second case study is the case study from Oromia zone in Amhara region in northeastern Ethiopia. And the indigenous knowledge practiced by highland farmers and lowland farmers were actually looked into. And the pastoralists mainly adapt diversifying their livelihoods, moving from purely livestock-based system to farming and even involved in seasonal migrations when necessary. Likewise, farmers, on the other hand, shift their cropping pattern, replacing water-demanding maize with more resilient sorghum, practice double cropping, and integrating agroforestry to sustain food production under stress. Some of the pastoral and agro-pastoral in this zone also change their cropping seasons to avoid the damage of crops by heavy rain during summer season, and they use the minor rain in the other season, and even rely on irrigation to overcome the problem. They use irrigation not only for crop production, but also to wash harmful salts from the soils. Another case study among the highland in this area is the way they adapt themselves to the frost that hit their agricultural crop. They adapt by planting actually cold resistant crops such as barley, wheat, while the lowland heat zone, people adjust their crop choices, again, relying on crops that can adapt themselves to the dry and arid situation. These strategies are not simply survival measures. They are powerful community-driven climate actions, innovations born from necessity and strengthened by the local knowledge, which show us resilience can be built through community indigenous knowledge. What these communities need is not to start from the scratch, but to be supported through investment in irrigation, climate smart agriculture, and enabling policies to scale their efforts. Lastly, when I come to the policy framework, for integrating indigenous knowledge to climate actions, there are various activities that should be taken into account. And the first one is assessment and recognition of indigenous knowledge. It is important to know what sort of indigenous knowledge exists and how it contributes to climate action strategies. And recognition is also very important. The other one is inclusive governance and participation. It is very important to ensure active indigenous participation in climate decision making by the local community, the indigenous people. Capacity building through education is another component of the policy framework, where it is important to strengthen indigenous communities' capacity. The other one is collaborative research and knowledge sharing, promoting partnership between community researchers, government, and other stakeholders as well. And policy integration and implementation is the other one, which is about embedded indigenous practices such as agroecology, water management, and biodiversity, the ones that we have mentioned as good practices of indigenous knowledge. And the other one is legal framework and the right protection, protect land right and safeguard cultural practices to sustain indigenous resources. And sustainable development goals alignment. It is very important to align the community practices with SDG, like one of it is climate action by itself, and the other one is the focus on ecosystem and inclusive governance. It is also very important to put in place effective monitoring and evaluation. Funding and resource allocation is the other one, where dedicating funding for indigenous-led climate initiative and mobilizing resource is quite pertinent. And the last one is public awareness and advocacy. The awareness raising of indigenous contribution should be there. And as a final remark, as a final point, the policy framework that integrates indigenous knowledge with climate action fosters synergy between indigenous wisdom and modern strategies, enhancing climate resilience, equity, and sustainability in Africa. And with this, I conclude my remark, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof. Thank you for giving us that insightful keynote speech on the place of indigenous knowledge as an invaluable resource for climate action agenda in Africa. We have a number of lawyers who are following us virtually, and I'm sure they've taken note in terms of where policy comes in. Allow me to introduce our third speaker, who is Dr. Kabemba, the Executive Director of the Southern Africa Resource Watch, and he leads a team of dedicated professionals who work to ensure that natural resources of the continent are managed in a transparent, accountable, and equitable manner. He has over 26 years of experience in research, policy, and advocacy on democratic governance, international politics, natural resource governance, ESG, and development in Africa. He is passionate about advancing the rights and interests of communities that are affected by the exploitation of natural resources and climate change. And he's passionate also about fostering dialogue and cooperation among various stakeholders. Let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Kabemba.
Yeah, thank you so much. Just want to thank you, the Bulo and Partners and CM Advocates, for the invitation to come and share some notes and exchange knowledge. My name is 𝐒𝐞𝐜𝐶 Kabemba. Our work is really to invest in the governance of natural resources. And that will include our minerals, oil and gas, water, land, forestry, fisheries. We are based in Johannesburg with offices in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in Zambia and Zimbabwe, and we work across the continent. I think the introduction or the presentation by Wangari's colleague on what they do to promote renewable energy start to speak to the connection with what else we do. And Professor, your presentation around indigenous people and knowledge also refer very strongly to the work that we do. Africa is full of mineral resources that we need for renewable energy. They speak about solar panels, wind turbines, electrical batteries or storage. You need minerals. You need copper. The Democratic Republic of Congo is the first producer of copper on the continent with 2,300,000 tons of copper a year, trying to increase. Zambia is the second with 800,000 tons of copper a year. They are looking to 2030 to produce 3 million tons of copper. And we've got many other countries that produce copper. Then we have cobalt. Again, the Democratic Republic of Congo is the world first producer of cobalt. Cobalt is very strategic for renewable energy. You will not have renewable energy without cobalt. Then we have lithium. Zimbabwe is the first producer of lithium on the continent. But Australia is the biggest producer in the world. But when we look at what we have on the continent, the recent discovery in the Democratic Republic of Congo could become the first biggest reserve in the world, putting all of us as a continent as the biggest producer of lithium. Then we have manganese as critical minerals that contribute to the manufacturing of renewable energy, with Gabon as the biggest producer of manganese in the world, followed by South Africa. So critically, you can imagine a continent this rich, but does not have resources to invest in mitigating climate change. My sense is that there is something that we can do for resource mobilization for climate action in Africa, considering how rich we are. And the paradox is, how can we be rich and so poor? I agreed to come and speak because I believe that we should not be beggars. With the resources we have, we can raise sufficient money to become our own protectors. I totally agree that that should not let go the issue of those who have polluted to pay and to contribute to our transition from low carbon economy from a high carbon economy to low carbon economy. One of the difficulties that we have as a continent is that we don't have finances, we don't have technology, and we don't have, because we've got skills, but we don't know where it is. We've got many Africans in diaspora that are doing great things. We've got great Africans, but we are not using the skills. Now, the biggest problem we have on the continent is the issues of poverty, of unemployment, and inequality. We are not going to resolve these issues if we don't find the resources. And climate change is going to accelerate poverty and unemployment and inequality. So domestic resource mobilization becomes a fundamental thing that we need to do as a continent. Through the Paris Agreement has been promises to support Africa or developing countries, but that money has not come. In 2009, there was a promise of 100 billion a year for a decade. That money has not come. COP29, that money has increased to 300 billion. That money will never come. If there's anybody who believes that that money will come, then you are in your own world. So the problem here is that whether we have money or not, climate change is going to affect us. Whether we are polluters or not, climate change is affecting us. So we need to find money. And my argument is that the abundance of resource we have can bring money. One, we've seen an increase in the price of these critical minerals. But are we getting what we should be getting from these resources? That's the first question. But when you look across the continent, we have a problem of collecting the revenues. One is the problem of state. The capacity of our state are very weak for our institutions to really monitor, evaluate, and collect the taxes and the revenues. Issue of corruption that takes away some of these revenues. The second issue is the overcapitalization of investment, where mining companies overcapitalize. They say an investment that can cost 1 billion, they say 3 billion. And you know what it means? It means before they start paying tax, they need to pay back the 3 billion. And most of the time when they've just paid, they also sell the company to another investor who comes with the same conditions. And it's a cycle where we lose revenues. So our tax regimes are not we give a lot of tax holidays, tax exemptions. Even when we are the most needed continent in terms of our resources, they still tell us you need to attract investment. And for attracting investment, you need to give us tax exemptions. It does not make sense. So we lose money through those schemes. And my sense is that we need, as a continent, to close those gaps. We are not going to import technology to deal with our inequalities. Those who are using panels, solar panels, are those who've got money. On this continent, when you see those who are putting panels on their houses, are those who can afford them. The poor can't do it because it becomes too expensive. Then it's continue to create gap between those who have and those who do not have. So the solution for us is that we need to manufacture these technologies on the continent. But how do you manufacture in a system, a global system where you've been integrated as a supplier of these raw materials? Raw. So the argument we are putting, we're saying the African continent must unite, speak with one voice, and come together to manufacture. And manufacturing is going to help us to industrialize. And if we are going to deal with poverty and employment, we need to industrialize. The current model does not produce enough jobs for our people. Unless we industrialize, we will remain in the situation where we are. So domestic resource mobilization is critical. We are not going to escape it. If we do escape, we are going to have serious problem. And we are going to remain where we are as a supplier of raw materials. So those are the two avenues we are looking at in terms of domestic resource mobilization. Now, you see, the indigenous people, that's where is their land most of the time that is used to do mining. And when you go around the continent, you'll find that those people are the poorest of the poor, despite the fact that they give their land for the extraction of the minerals. Their water is being polluted. Their water is becoming scarce, the scarcity of water because mining uses a lot of water. They are being displaced from their land to give way to mining. So the issue is that how do we protect them? And you can only protect them by bringing them in the discussion to ensure that the free, prior, and informed consent becomes a principle that is accepted by everybody. And to ensure that the polluter pays principle becomes one principle that is accepted by everybody. Unless we do that, we will not protect the indigenous people. We are not going to protect the communities that give their land to mining. So you can see that the problem we have starts from knowledge, having data, knowing how many of these critical minerals we have in terms of reserves. And most of our government and countries don't know what they have. And you cannot negotiate properly to get enough revenue if you don't know what you have. So data, contract negotiations, ESGs to ensure that we protect people, environment, and society becomes the same linear process where we need to protect everything. So maybe in conclusion, I just want to say that our fate is in our own hands. Everything we are discussing here is about power. Those who have power are going to dominate in the current, as it has always been. So for us to have that power to negotiate and to reclaim ownership and sovereignty of our minerals and to use it for our benefits to attract more revenues and to industrialize, Africa must speak with one voice. So the unity of Africa becomes important. If we cannot unite, as you might have seen, the multilateralism is falling apart. It's those who've got power who are aggressive that are going to dominate and are going to capture everything, including revenues. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Kabemba, for adding another important layer to our dialogue. We have natural resource and mineral rich, and that we should use this to resource climate action. Now let's hear from Isaac Okola, a climate finance and carbon market expert who leads the development of high integrity carbon projects under the Carbon Development Mechanism, CDM, and voluntary carbon standards. And currently he has developed and implemented carbon financing initiatives across Africa. He currently works as a manager of carbon financing for Evidence Action, a non-profit organization that scales low-cost health interventions to improve the well-being of hundreds of millions of people in Africa and Asia. Passionate about leveraging carbon finance to unlock sustainable development, let's please welcome Isaac as he delivers a speech on innovative financing models that integrate climate action with social impact. Thank you, Isaac.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. It's an honor to speak after professors and the doctors. And one thing that I must acknowledge is they have done a good pace setting on one of the most important discussions of the world and where we are at as Africa and why we need probably an innovative climate finance. I'll pick it from where Dr. Claudia has put it. Africa is really blessed. And definitely, as he put it, even if we have resources, climate change is there. So what is it that we need to do? And that is what I'm going to build on. So ladies and gentlemen in the room, and also those who are listening online, it's a pleasure to speak to you today about a subject that sits at the heart of Africa and at the future of Africa. That is what we call innovative climate finance. But before I start, let me build this context. Africa contributes less than 4% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. Yet our continent actually bears some of the harshest impacts of climate change. We still suffer a lot from droughts. We still experience a lot of flooding. We experience a lot of heat waves and threats to food security in our continent. And according to African Development Bank, Africa faces annual climate finance gap of over 250 billion. All right? So traditional sources, which actually has been in our aid for some time, be it the donor aid, be it the concessional loans, or the garbage budgets, are simply not enough to address the issues that we have, or climate-induced issues. If we are to meet our adaptation and mitigation needs, then we must think differently. And thinking differently means what? We must innovate. And here is a case where we are not just talking about innovation, but we are talking about innovating climate finance or solutions that we can actually rely on as Africa and not as people who are actually affected heavily. I want to give you a case study of what I do and what we do as evidence action. We actually scale out low-cost health interventions to meet the need of that community which is actually struggling to find solutions to some of those problems. So we have our Safe Water initiative, and currently we implement this program in 9 countries across Asia and Africa. So our Safe Water initiative is designed as a public health program, delivering clean, safe water to millions. But here is the innovative twist. It also doubles as a climate solution. Why? Instead of the governments or the community investing a lot of money or probably using traditional ways of treating water, we provide a very simple structure that helps them to treat water and to access this safe drinking water. And this is how we innovate climate finance, even to spearhead this process and to continue serving the community. So our intervention is serving multiple goals. We talk about many core benefits, but at the same time, we are meeting the needs of the community. So why is innovative finance so critical in the context of Africa? And I want to build on what Dr. Claudia has actually talked about. We have traditional finance structures. And for many years, I think my experience in this field is taking us back to almost 13 years. We have advocated for climate finance for many years. But what we are getting is still very slow, very fragmented, and heavily donor-driven. So innovative finance, on the other hand, should be offering scalable, market-based solutions. And it also helps to mobilize private capital alongside public funds, so that we have a concentrated efforts between governments and the private sector for us to scale out climate innovative solutions to our people. And most importantly, innovative climate finance should strengthen Africa's ownership of climate action. It's time for us to own what we are supposed to do as Africa without depending heavily on probably the West. But at the same time, as we own these initiatives, we need to align with investment, especially with our nationally determined contributions. Now, let me share a few models that have worked for the years that we have actually advocated for climate finance. Many people have talked about carbon markets. Article 6 has given us a good avenue, a more robust system that can help us to bring finance home without struggling much. Under Article 6 at voluntary markets, we can generate sustainable revenues for renewable systems that the first speaker talked about, clean cooking, safe water initiatives, nature-based solutions. At the same time, it can help us to deliver not just emission cuts, but also health and energy access. And at the end of it all, we are still going to benefit our ecosystems. Second, we talk about blended finance, okay? So this is where we talk about concessional capital combined with private investments. And this is very important. Why? Because we are going to de-risk green projects. Think about the green bonds or sustainability-linked loans or concessional equity. A good example that I can give you for the case of Kenya is actually what we call the financing locally led climate actions. FLOCA is actually working and is having directives which are going to help the local community, and they are the center of planning for those particular resources. That is a good example of blended finance, which is actually working very well. Then we have the climate risk insurance and resilience bonds, which actually is supposed to protect the communities from droughts and also the shocks of climate. But at the same time, it will help us to attract long-term investors who can really invest in our natural resources. So the African risk capacity has even insured some of the entire countries against drought. These are solutions that Africa can actually rely on to build on its innovative coffers of climate finance. And finally, we have impact-linked finance, where returns are actually tied directly to verified outcomes. All right? This will actually ensure there is accountability because Dr. Claudia talked about corruption cases that we are actually experiencing in our countries. So this impact-linked finance will actually ensure that there's accountability, but will also ensure that we have measurable impact as we find solutions to climate change. As I move towards finalizing, I want to give some context that will also be very key and very important for us to consider. We hold 40% of the world's solar potential in Africa. We have vast landscapes for reforestations. We have mangrove restorations. We have regenerative agriculture potential across the countries. To add on top, we have a young techno-savvy population. Africa actually boasts of 70% of the under 30. These guys are ready to pioneer a digital climate solutions. They are ready to model a mobile-based trading systems and green fintech. How can we invest in our young people to provide solutions to the climate finance that we have? But more importantly, we are seeing growing political goodwill because as we speak, many countries have actually developed relevant policy and legislative frameworks that are favoring investments across. The issue has been implementation. So how can we work together with our governments to ensure that we implement these solutions which are going to provide for us a regional cooperation, as well as highlighting the need for a united Africa to scale the solutions. We had a very good declaration during the first Africa Climate Summit. And one thing that I'm really looking forward to is how that is going to be linked to the second Africa Climate Summit, for us to push even the innovations further. But for these opportunities to flourish, ladies and gentlemen, we need an enabling environment. That's why I find this discussion very crucial. And thanks to the CM advocates for bringing such a very important discussion. We need an enabling environment. How are we going to achieve that? This means that, one, we still need to advocate for very clear and stable policies. For some of the examples of those innovative climate finance that I've talked about, we have the carbon trading and green investments. We need incentives like tax breaks, which Dr. 𝐒𝐞𝐜𝐧𝐝 actually talked about, and guarantees really to attract the private sector. We need to stop this discussion of aid. We need to make climate a lucrative investment opportunity so that the private sector can come and help us to scale the solutions that we have. But still, capacity building is still a serious issue that we need to focus on, both at institutional level and at community level. But above all, in Africa, we need to foster transparency and accountability for the little resources that we have. What amazes me is even the few aid that we receive in form of donor funding are still being squandered, and corruption is still at the peak, right? So I find this to be a very important discussion. Why? And this drives me to call to action as I finalize. Africa must move from being a passive recipient of climate finance to become a global innovator in climate finance. Becoming a global innovator in climate finance means that we take charge of the little opportunities that we have and scale them further. We need strong partnerships between government, private sector, civil society, and international institutions. It's very key. At this point, we can't say that we can move alone as Africa. So those collaborations are very important and very crucial for us. So by embracing innovative finance models, Africa can actually transform the climate changes that we are currently experiencing into an economic opportunity, a way that we are going to make a living out of. By this, we will be driving resilience. We will be creating jobs for the 70% population that we have, and also we'll be fostering sustainable growth. I want to finalize by a statement. Climate finance is not an aid. It is not an aid, it is an investment. So the moment we start looking at it as an investment, then I think our perceptions will change. And that will mark the end of my speech. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Isaac, for those insights on innovative financing. You've talked about FLOCA program in Kenya, and you've also said that even the little aid that we receive in our countries, we still misappropriate it through corrupt practices. And we have a gentleman here from an organization called PASIDA. And PASIDA is a Kenyan NGO founded in 2008, and it empowers pastoralist communities through sustainable community-driven development in livelihoods. So the gentleman here is he's just walking in. He's the executive director of PASIDA. And I want him to come and share with us how they have managed to monitor FLOCA in Marsabit County using technology. Samuel?
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed, good afternoon. So my name is Samuel Lentoror, working in Kenya with an organization called PASIDA. We work in majorly in the border between Kenya and Ethiopia, so that is northern Kenya and southern Ethiopia. And we are registered both in Kenya and also in Ethiopia. And thank you so much, the organizers of this great event. Thank you, Stella. And thank you for giving the opportunity to be able to echo what the great women and men have been discussing in this Africa Climate Summit 2 over the last 3 days. And to echo their sentiments, of course, we realize that climate change is not only real, it is very brutal. It is not respecting any borders. It affects all. And for us, we work majorly in the pastoral region, where the livelihoods is around mobility of people moving from place to place. And in this aspect, they come through many challenges. And, to be able to realize the importance of climate financing, I had a gentleman speaking about the FLOCA. Now, as an organization, we realize that transparency and accountability is also very, very critical. And over the last few years, we've been trying to work with our communities in terms of ensuring that they understand their rights, they understand their allocation in terms of budgeting from the government, and to be able to monitor as well as also to track, what is happening, and if it reaches to the common man. We've been doing briefs and sharing with communities and with relevant stakeholders. But now the last few years, 2-3 years, we realize that that is not enough, because at times, you do this and it doesn't reach everybody. And at the same time, also sometimes, people forget. Now, we went ahead to be more innovative and bring on board a tool that we call Mulika tool. And Mulika in Swahili, it's a Swahili word, which means in other words, like making it light, making it open for everybody. And this is a software tool that we use to track, what budgetary allocations is given by, especially for us, the county government, to the various communities in terms of climate financing, efforts. And in this, we now have this tool online. It's called www.mulikabudget.com. And there we are able to, to track even the previous allocations, what had been allocated before. We can reference. We can also be able to gauge, what is now being planned and use it for the future preparations and future planning. So this is just in a small way to let you know what we are doing, like in a practical way, to ensure that we only not just speak about climate change adaptation and climate change financing, but also we take, small, bold steps in ensuring that this is practically, realized by especially to communities that face this climate change the most. Like I said, these are the pastoral communities. These are high-level illiterate communities who don't understand a lot, but at the same time, they have their own ways of traditional ways on how to go about their businesses, how to be able to handle, issues that to do with climate change. But because of other factors of industrialization, factors of, high population growth, now industry is growing, roads are being constructed, people are taking, ownership of land, in different levels, their mobility is becoming very much at stake. And for this, they also need, to be able to be informed and capacity built on how to go about life when the life is becoming difficult, and especially in the face of climate change. That is what I just wanted to share in brief. That I also call upon, the partners and stakeholders in this sitting, that it's time for us now to play our role of catalyst the best. The communities are there to make their voice, but we are here to build their capacity so that they can also be able to hold responsible and make the decision makers accountable to their word and also to their actions. Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. What a great way to end the physical panel contributions. As we have seen from all the contributions, is that we have capacity to resource our own climate action agenda. But then we have three virtual speakers joining us, and they are young people, and they are here to tell us that beyond the capacity, it is doable. And so allow me to welcome our first virtual speaker to just take 2 minutes or so and share some of the climate adaptive action strategies she's seen in practice. And this is from South Sudan, Mora Ajak, who is an award-winning freelance journalist with several years of experience in the broadcast media. If you've watched a documentary known as South Sudan Poised Floods on BBC Africa Eye, then you know Mora, she's the one behind it. And Mora, kindly welcome and share with us what you have seen happening.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And I'm glad to join you. So briefly, in South Sudan, significant climate actions relying on donor funding include the promotion of nature-based solutions within agriculture to bolster food security, the development of climate-smart agricultural methodologies such as multi-cropping, the establishment of community-led watershed management initiatives, and the enhancement of institutional capacity of climate resilience. Additional areas potentially supported by donor financing include the implementation of renewable energy powered irrigation systems, the improvement of rural agricultural value chains to mitigate food loss, and comprehensive preparedness for climate-related disasters. So some examples from the programs or the initiatives that happening at the community level. They have drought-resistant crops, international organizations operating through local non-governmental organizations or NGOs to facilitate the cultivation of crops. Rainwater harvesting projects are dedicated to techniques for collecting and storing rainwater for both agricultural and domestic consumption.
Sorry, her internet is a bit unstable. As we wait for her to sort the internet connection, we can have the next speaker.
Our second virtual contribution is from Mr. Mansari.
Leaders, I bring you greetings from Sierra Leone in the spirit of Africa. I want to thank same advocates and all those who helped in organizing this event. I think the trending phrase in this year's Africa Climate Summit interests me quite a lot. And that's why in the next couple of minutes, I want to share perspectives from Sierra Leone, what has been going on as far as combating climate change is concerned. Quite a lot of big initiatives have been going on in Sierra Leone as far as combating climate change is concerned. For example, there is a project that is spearheaded by the Freetown City Council in collaboration with the government of Sierra Leone. And this project is called Freetown, the Tree Town, which actually aims to plant 1 million trees in the capital city, Freetown, in order to restore our lost forests, especially along mountainous areas and coastal areas. And this project is already creating impact as far as flood mitigation is concerned in the capital city. In another front, we've seen the Ministry of Energy international donor partners and the government of Sierra Leone, as well as private sector stakeholders in the energy sector, have installed quite a lot of mini grids and microgrids across the rural areas of the country to increase energy access, to cut down on our emissions and to reduce our carbon footprint. I think that's also a project that is actually creating impact as far as the fight against climate change is concerned. Additionally, the Ministry of Agriculture, and in collaboration with the government, is also implementing a massive agroforestry project in the country, which is actually aimed at restoring our lost forest in strategic areas around the country. And this is actually spearheaded mostly by women. So it has empowered about 15,000 women in the country. Now, let me just share some practical steps as to how we can achieve self-resourcing as far as climate action is concerned. I think green bonds, carbon credit monetization, reallocation of subsidy, establishment of regional banks that can fund climate change initiatives. These are all some options we can use. But then I want to conclude with a note that Africa is ready to lead, and it's confident to lead, as we've seen from a lot of initiatives around the continent. Thank you so much for your audience, and thank you to all the organizers for putting this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mansa. That was Mansa from Sierra Leone. That was a powerful reminder that we have capacity to resource our climate agenda, and it can be done. Our next virtual speaker is Retabile Molumo, the Managing Director of Molumo Holdings, which is a waste management company that empowers women and youth in Lesotho's peri-urban and urban areas by establishing recycling cooperatives. Mr. Molumo, please share with us what you're doing to resource climate action in Lesotho.
Thank you very much, Stella, and good afternoon to everybody in Ethiopia, and thank you again for the invitation. So with Molumo Holdings, what we do basically is we have realized that, like most African countries, the biggest issue of waste management is the not in my backyard movement, where waste is taken directly to dump sites and not being recycled or reused. So where do we come in? So for Lesotho, what happens is the dump sites or the illegal landfills are located next to the field. So that we already have an issue of poor waste management, and then let alone the issue of food security that is caused by land pollution from this waste that is scattered around. So what we did was we have this problem of greenhouse gas emissions from these illegal dump sites. We have an issue of food security. And then now, how do we get the finance to run a project that can deal with this? So we went back and said, let us start off with having, where do we get the finance? So the finance was the waste that is there. What we did with the waste was, so Lesotho is geographically stationed inside South Africa. So South Africa owns 40% of the $40 billion waste management sector in Africa. So for us, we decided, okay, fine, let's start cooperatives in these communities. Now, these cooperatives will collect the waste, will buy back the waste from these communities, and then export to recycling mills in South Africa. So that is basically what we do in Lesotho. We buy back waste from recycling cooperatives that we have established in communities. So through these cooperatives, people get an income, they have a source of living. So through cooperatives as well, they are able to get funding because cooperatives are registered entities. So phase one of the project, which we've established, is now we are able to move away from the issue of waste management. Then how do we get to the issue of food security? See, the funny part about Africa is, in as much as we have an issue of food security, we are one of the biggest food waste polluters. So now we're going to try to help this recycling cooperatives establish what we call vermi structures. So the vermi structures will be used to produce what is called vermicompost, which is organic farming. So dependents will no longer rely on chemical fertilizer, but in organic farming. So that is basically what we do in this country as Molumo Holdings.
Thank you, Mr. Molumo. Your points highlight the importance of mobilizing Africa's own human resource for waste management. And to conclude our speaker lineup, we'll hear from Ms. Marsha Tafara, who is an environmentalist and climate change expert at the Ethiopian Ministry of Agriculture, and she's a PhD student at Addis Ababa University School of Development Studies. She has wealth of experience with the local farmer community in her study sites. Please welcome Ms. Marsha.
Thank you very much. I ask you my apology for my voice because of this, maybe the indication of climate change. I don't know. I wanted to focus on only one point is because most of the things are presented by the keynote speakers, especially my professor presented a lot, and the third also present a lot about the issues. Here, what I want to emphasize here is we must look inwards to our community. We must look inwards to our indigenous community, because the indigenous community have many things to give to contribute globally. If we scale up and use it properly, we can get many solutions for climate change. When we come to one of my study sites, where I was with them, they told me about many things, but due to time limitation, I can't mention it here all. But we have a good traditional system governing the environment here in Ethiopia that is known as GDA system. You know, GDA system is a very rich local democratic system. They know how to manage the environment, how to govern the society, and all of this. So if we use the knowledge through this GDA system, the community can easily mobilize and restore their environment, and they can also protect the environment. Once the environment protected, you know that it's easy to adapt in climate change, or they become more resilient for the ongoing climate change. As it is what I'm saying, we must look inwards to our indigenous community. We should, especially we African scholars, we are just thinking another solution outside Africa. While we have many things here in our community, in our society. So we should give a focus on our communities to give some solution or to bring the solution. The other is based on this traditional or indigenous knowledge. The farmer knows varieties, crop varieties, just to mention how they know the variety of crops, which are the water-philic and which are the thermophilic crops. And they know even the specific microclimate in which area such kinds of crops are well adapted and well produced. If the scholars or the advocates or anybody's help those communities, those farmers, financially and technologically, they can become resilient more for such climate changes. So there is a mobility, a mass mobilization workers, a soil and water conservation program. You know that. This is very important for enhancing the ecosystem while protecting or while making more water infiltration and keeping the soil from washing away. This is what I'm observed through my discussions with my rural communities during my field work. Thank you very much. Due to the time, I'm sorry, time is limited.
Thank you, Ms. Marshat. This rounds up our discussion beautifully. We were about to take questions from the audience, but time is up. So we're happy to receive emails for any questions that you may have, and we'll make sure that this will be sent through to the speakers. Thank you all. And this concludes our discussion and dialogue.
The email to send any questions you have is esg@cmadvocates.com, and we will ensure to respond or to forward them to the relevant speakers. In conclusion, we have a token of appreciation for our speakers. So just please come in front and receive something small from CM Advocates to just say that we honor you and we honor the knowledge that you have shared with us. So thank you. We can start with Professor. Thank you. Okay, next then we have Dr. Kabemba. Isaac. Samuel. Mashet. I think the other speakers have left, but we'll get a way to get to them. And even our virtual panelists will get to you. Ladies and gentlemen, both attending physically and virtually, we've come to the end of this side event. We appreciate your presence. Let's continue engaging on our socials. Thank you.